Hey guys, welcome back to the Lit Mag Lab podcast. I'm Jazz Marie, aka Vevnaforoya. So, previously on this podcast, I was doing a walkthrough of some of the features that Duo Suma has, right? Duo Suma, again, is Duotrope submission management platform. And Duotrope has been around again since about 2005. And then I believe later on, around 2018, it looks like is when Duo Sumas, was created or established, if I recall. In any case, please do, listen back to that past episode. And I think this particular one here, as you can see, I'm on Oleada. So we're going to continue the sort of conga line of episodes on submission management systems. Now, I didn't do them back to back or anything like that, submission management coverage and stuff. So, again, if you're just tuning into this episode, just a reminder, please do check out episode 35, which is a submittable overview from a submitter's perspective, and also episode 36 on Subfolio, and 48, which is part two of Subfolio, again showing what a submitter sees, and then also 52 and 53, right? So I did a coverage on Dapple in episode 52 and then Duo Suma in 53, just previously, right? So yeah, for those of you who have listened into most of this podcast series, you may be aware I actually have used Oleada too. You can see if I scroll down here, right? There's Dippity Literary Magazine, right? So that is we're not using, again, Oleada at this time or anything like that. That is, back from when we were on it, right? So I think, again, what Oleada should do here, by the way, is to have, right, inactive places that don't have any projects or anything like that active at the time hidden from view, because this list of 39 here, and yeah, I'll scroll through so you guys can see, and it's just taking a little bit to load the rest of it here. But what is here in terms of like the 39 listings, these aren't, all active at all. Some of these places have perhaps become defunct or are no longer using Oleada, or have, perhaps changed their submission management system, or are actually active, so it's a mixed bag. Like Fine Print Press, let's go into that real quick and take a look. So see, they are, active and open for submissions. It says open from April 30th, 2025 to August 15th, 2025. And then, yeah, there's poetry, right? So they're about to close here, their open window about, it looks like it's today is August 8th, right? So it closes out in a couple days. And sometimes they extend their, deadlines. Yeah. And we'll come back to this later. And we may do an episode, a coverage on a Fine Print Press a bit later on. We'll see. Because I think they have a very cool publication series, by the way. And yeah, so not all of these, like if we click in the Farlog Press, see it says this publisher has no active projects. And I'm not going to click on the official website and stuff like that. When I click on that, by the way, I get an error message saying the site doesn't exist. So again, not all of these publishers are active or anything like that. I think it would be very beneficial if, Oleada has these hidden from view or a search filter or someplace where, or something where, the active and open calls are pushed to the top, and then the bottom most ones are older ones or products that have been inactive. But I think it is confusing a little bit if someone stumbles across the homepage of Oleada and then they end up clicking on a lot of inactive publications or projects, right, or places that haven't used Oleada for quite some time, or maybe are some lit mags and journals and become defunct. So yeah, but some of these places, quite a few of them are still around. Not all of them are perhaps intaking submissions via Oleada. So just keep that in mind. Fine Print Press looks like it's open right now, about to close soon. And let's check out some of these other ones here real quick, and then we'll dive in. So see, this is a testing account, right? It's from 2022, this project. So another test account. I think these should just be hidden from view. And then one that is open, I believe is Metatron Press, and you can see Montreal, Canada. So they are open right now, and maybe I'll do an episode on them too as well. We'll see. But yeah, you can see, and then their website's linked here, and you can, check this out. So this is, I guess, is another way to find more lit mags, journals, and presses, right? This isn't necessarily like the discover opportunity pages that, Submittable has, and Duosuma and Subfolio, right, that I've shown you in the past podcast episodes, right? Specifically, right, I think that was around episode 51. I was showing you side by side some of the discover opportunity pages, how to find fee-free submissions. So we don't really see a filter of any kind, or anything like that. And that's because, these publications here, they have no fees, or they shouldn't have any fees, right? Reason I'm saying that, and that's not necessarily true. I'll tell you why. So let's go out to here, the about section. Now I'll go through this in a little bit, but if we scroll down here, and it says here, no submission fees for authors, period. So it says, I'm quoting this, we wanted to be a low cost alternative for publishers, in part to lessen the need for submission fees. We believe submission fees are often a barrier to working class writers, a burden that falls unevenly on people of color. And that is absolutely true. I think for everyone in general, everyone hates, right? Submission fees. It is a barrier for everyone, regardless of, their background and things like that, whether BIPOC or not. I feel like everyone is on a tight budget. I mentioned this on the podcast, right? It's very tough, for others to cough up submission fees to do that. It adds up fast. So we go back to Oleada's home here. Let's take a look at Fine Print Press again. So I'm going to scroll down here. See how it says here in their call? Make sure to pay the submission fee of $3 via the link on our website before submitting. So yeah, Fine Print Press has that, and they've been using Oleada for quite some time. I've submitted them to myself. I've used Oleada myself for Dippity in the past. Back in, I think it was 2022 is when I reached out, to the founder of Oleada, and then and yeah, and then 2023 was the year we used it, up to a point, and yeah. And then I moved off of it to, with the CLMP membership, I got on Submittable. And without that membership, right, again, it's just way too expensive, right? Several $1,000s for Submittable, and $10,000 a year or something like that for organizations or, places that want to use it. Without that CLMP membership, it's just too expensive. And again, I share in this podcast other submission management systems that have CLMP membership discounts. Again, just a reminder, Dapple, which is fairly new, right? And then Duosuma has a CMP membership discount. And yeah, so Subfolio, when we moved from Submittable, right, to Subfolio this year, our bill didn't change at all, right? So again, I'm just making a reminder on that. So yeah, anyways, yeah, you see here, Fine Print Press has a submission fee. They're saying you have to, make sure you pay the submission fee of $3 via the link on their website. Let's quickly check this out before we dive into, a recap of Oleada's features and some of my experiences that are called from it back in 2022 to 2023. So yeah, let's click on Fine Print Press's website. Now I may do a separate episode on this later, but let's just head to the submit section to see how they have it set up. So it says here, right, pay submission fee. Now it says they require submission fee, but it says, um, please pay the submission fee, right, before moving on to submit work. If your submission fee would bar you from submitting due to financial circumstances, it says please reach out and they will waive the fee. So yeah, and it also says you do not need to pay a submission fee for each piece submitted with the same category, but additional submission fee is required if you're submitting for multiple categories. So yeah, they're saying that fee waivers are possible, so to reach out to them if it's a problem. Again, I think it's fee waivers are, it's good that they're stating that, but I think, right, it could be confusing to someone, seeing that, it says here, right, no submission fees for authors, period. But then, like, Fine Print Press is saying, oh, well, we have a submission fee, right? And Fine Print Press, I must say, I love the publication series they have. It's very unique and distinct again, so maybe I'll cover it in a separate episode, totally. You can read more about them, and yeah. So I like that, Oleada here again has locations here, and you can see, Metatron Press, right? Again, that's Montreal, Canada. So there's some international, based, you know, um, lit mags and journals and presses in here. Oya's review, let's click in to see that. I'll click into some of these guys before I start talking about Oleada because I'm trying to like refresh my memory here a little bit. So you can see, yeah, they have been using Oleada, right? The last window they had here was March 11th, 2025. So yeah, you can see the status of the project. And let's scroll down a bit further. So not all of these again are active, and you may see here sublunary editions. Now, if you don't know what sublunary editions is, I'm going to share that with you real quick here, and then maybe we'll go into some other ones here too. So the founder of Oleada is Joshua Rothis. I apologize if I completely messed up the pronunciation of your last name in advance, Joshua. But yeah, Joshua developed Oleada, and so yeah, and you can see it says at sublunary editions right here, and yeah, even in the like tab of the browser, you'll see sublunary editions mentioned. So what is sublunary editions? You saw it here, right? It's listing, so it's a publication, right? And yeah, so let's go off to their website here. Sublunary Editions, right? They're based out of Seattle, Washington. I must say they have a very beautiful website. Totally. I actually have come across Firmament in the past. This is their magazine, right? Check it out when you get a chance. I don't know if they're open right now or anything like that. Honestly, I could pop in and see. Actually, let's check. I don't think they are, but we could see. So yeah, Joshua Rothis. I'm gonna mess up on last name again. I'm just gonna say first names at this point. I apologize. But so yeah, we go to here, right? So they're not open right now. It doesn't look like they've been, having active projects on Oleada here itself. So I'm not sure how they're doing submissions and stuff for, their magazine and book series. If we go to the about section here, let's go here. It says, scroll down, there's Joshua, right? So Joshua is also a writer and artist living in the Pacific Northwest. And yeah, for those of you unaware, I don't know if I'll do a separate episode on sublunary edition, so I'm just going to read about it now a little bit for you guys, and then we'll get back to Oleada features. So sublunary edition started as a small-scale DIY project by Joshua Rothis in early 2019. For the first several months, the press's sole output was a regular envelope of new writing mailed the old fashioned way to subscribers. Since then, the press has expanded to publish 10 to 12 brief books every year, along with a quarterly magazine, Firmament in and their archival series, Empyrean. And I could be mispronouncing all of that, and I apologize. But yeah, that's really awesome. I think that's really cool. Joshua himself is on a publication team, right? And he started Sublunary Editions. He founded that, right? And Oleada. So I think that's really cool. So I don't really know what they're using for submissions or if they're open or really, I'm not really sure. So this is obviously the magazine, right? So I'm just curious, like, if they're still, using Oleada for intaking submissions, or how to submit to Firmament, itself. So I don't know. Let's type submit. I don't know, submit in here in the search. I don't know if anything's gonna come up. Let's see if any search results come up. No, nothing. Um, yeah, there's obviously a way to like submit, right? So about contact, right? Okay, here we go. So yeah, it says here submissions, right? So I went to about and contact, right? So it says here, we occasionally open for unsolicited submissions, both for book length manuscripts as well as for Firmament. All open submission periods will be listed on our Oleada page here. So I'm not sure, if they're still using Oleada or the products are just not visible right now or anything like that. I'm not sure what the status of sublunary editions is currently. In any case, their website's still up, and it looks like they are, have a lot of publications going on. I don't know if we can see dates on here at all. So yeah, they're still active, right? This is from March 21st, 2025 of this year. So yeah, I think that was just confusing seeing again, those older projects listed there. So it might be best to, again, have some sort of filtering search or to hide some of these from view, ones that aren't open necessary for calls at the time. But yeah, So other ones here, right? Not all of these are open again, so you'd have to click in and see. But it's another way to find more publications. So rejection letters is open. It looks like too. Obviously, you can verify, right? By going out to their website too. Not all these places maybe are listed on Chill Subs or um, Duotrope, or even, through not all these places are members of, CLMP either. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. But this is really cool. Nevertheless, I think Oleada, again, was one submission management system I never forgot, because it was our first submission management system that I ever used. The Google form didn't really count, our setup. So, I started again, using Oleada more so in 2023. I reached out, I remember at the end of December of 2022 to Oleada and got a response back from Joshua. And I had just like one or two questions, when setting up things. It's very simple and easy to use and pretty straightforward, feature wise. Obviously, it doesn't have, all the bells and whistles that Submittable has, or, let's say Duo Suma, but nevertheless, one thing about Oleada till today, right, as of August 2025, it's still free to use, completely free to use. There are no monthly, plan fees or anything like that. So it's 100% free. And I was surprised, when I was told that back in 2022. And I don't see any, pricing plans or anything like that currently. So it looks like it's still free today to use and to join. So yeah, I know when I last had, contacted Joshua, he mentioned, right, that if Oleada had, grown, and more publishers or lit magazine journals and presses, right, join it and start using it, right, there would be an implementation of like a monthly fee, for usage. So I think he was stating back then, um, less than $15, right? Which is really reasonable, right? Yeah. So currently it's still free. It still says beta only, and it was also like that I think back in 2022. So I'm not really sure what is ahead for Oleada. The roadmap hasn't been updated in some time either. In either case, there are still some publishers, and lit magazine journals still actively holding calls on it till today, as 2025, like Five Print Press, Metatron Press, and right, rejection letters looks like it too, and the other and some other ones here. Not all of these places are, open right now, and you can see it takes a little bit of time to load here, but yeah, I think Oleada is still super awesome because it's free, right? There aren't a lot of submission management systems out there that are 100% free right now, or even low cost, right? Moksha is like $75 a month, guys, right? That's like out of a lot of, right, lit magazine journals budget. Submittable has a monthly fee. We moved off of, again, so let's go into, our old listing here, right, that we haven't used Oli in quite some time. So it looks like the last time we had a call here that I set up project wise on Oleada was 2023, right? And that's around the time, like winter 2023, where we moved to Submittable and I got the CLMP membership. And yeah, so I mentioned Oleada earlier on in this podcast, the audio portions a little bit, and just a reminder, my memory was pretty fuzzy at the time. So some of the features I was saying weren't there, or some things about it, perhaps weren't necessarily accurate because some things may have changed, since 2022, since 2023 of Oleada. It's been a couple years, like about 3-ish years, right, coming up here. So who knows? Some features may have been added since I've last used it. So just keep that in mind. So it may actually have some of the things I mentioned that weren't there at the time, right now. So yeah, let's circle back to the about, so I'm just going to go through this for you guys like I've done with the other submission management systems. And again, I do have experience with Oleada. I didn't use it for several years or anything like that, but again, I have some memory of it, right? So this is refreshing my memory of some of the features too and stuff like that. Yeah, so Oleada has unlimited products per publication. It says, and I'm quoting this, there are no limits on how many products you can create as a publication. Need a new project each month? No problem. So that's nice, unlimited products, right? We've seen, as I shared in this podcast, Dapple, right, has a cap on how many products you have on their paid, right, monthly plan. It's up to 10, right? And then they have a higher unlimited plan, right, for growth. And then their free plan at Dapple is like you can only have, they have a very very small limit, right? 10 submissions, right? And I don't think anyone would really use that free plan, that I showed you back in that episode. That would be more of like just a trial and test run. So I love this unlimited products per publication, and we have that currently, with our subfolio, plan that we're on. We don't have a cap on amount of projects submittable. Again, caps most lit magazine journals to just 6 projects, right? On the CMP membership plan, which is pretty limited. So limitative, right? So that's why I really liked moving over to subfolio again, because we didn't have those restrictions at all, and we can have as many team members as we like. Speaking of team members, on Oleada it says unlimited editors per publication. Whether you're a one-person team or have a whole platoon of editors, we don't put caps on how many users you can add to your publication to review submissions. So at the time I was with Oleada back in, 2023 and 2022, that brief window that we had, I didn't really have I didn't have a volunteer staff at the time or anything like that. So I was just solo reading and reviewing things myself. But I think that's nice that, you can have others in there. I didn't really see how to facilitate that or set it up back then, or I don't know when, some of these features were added, or if more were after I, stopped using Oleada, right? So I'm not sure when these features were created or, implemented. So yeah, it says 5 different ways to take submissions. So when creating a project, you have the options to take rolling submissions, always open, implement a quota. The project closes once you receive a certain number of submissions. Start on a specific time, and you can have certain open and close dates, right? As I showed you on the projects. What else here? So anonymized submissions. So it says for each project you have the option to anonymize submissions, right? Concealed, right, by biographical data until a piece is accepted or declined. Now I don't remember really seeing this. I can't remember anyways. I know back when we used Oleada, I was like, please don't put, your contact information in the file itself, right? And things like that. In either case, I think that's nice that they mention that, right? That's concealed reads is possible. I just don't fully remember that feature, when I was using it. I don't remember at the time. In any case, Submittable has a concealed cover letter feature too, right? Subfolio 2 has concealed cover letter features. And, Dual Summa, I can't remember if I mentioned that on Dual Summa. In any case, you can dig through Dual Summa's documentation, if you're interested in Dual Summa too, and even reach out right to their team, right? If you have a question or something about a feature or something, I didn't cover all features of each submission management system by any means. Security, right? Encryption, multi-level editorial process. So it says move submissions through quick read and close read phases. So this wording was a little bit confusing to me because I was familiar with, I wasn't familiar with this. So I recall, asking Joshua what that meant, right? I think if I recall, he said, I think I still have the message here. Let me pull it up. So it says here, quick read and close read flags were something that was used at sublunary, right? That was built into Oleada's process. Quick read just means someone has glanced at it. Close read means, it should be looked at, right? Or the team or editor should look at that one. The person who submitted only ever sees, though, in progress on their end, so they have no way of knowing which state it's in, right? And that's the same thing with a lot of submission man systems. Others just typically see in progress once it's being reviewed. And then once a decision is made, right, it's accept or decline, right? And, back then in 2023, right, it looks like Joshua also mentioned that, they were looking to, or he was looking into implement tagging, right? And to organize submissions and stuff. I don't know if they've added tagging at all or anything like that. I don't know if anything's changed since I last used it. So I'm just reading through the features here that are visible at the time on Oleada, page here. So yeah, on the Oleada page here. So yeah, limitations and future features. So it says, so this is like, here. So it says workflow customization. One of the features we anticipate launching sooner than later is the ability to customize the steps in your editorial workflow. It says file upload limitations. So it says users can submit one file per submission currently, and yeah, so that is a limitation, right? Yeah, in terms of the amount of files and things like that, and it's not really, I know some do spoken word submission calls and video, right? We do that at Dippity Litmag, right? So this is where it's a limitation, right? A lot of places like to have, other files or have other calls, maybe, right, video or audio, so it's not really friendly for other submission file types besides these, right? PDF, doc, and RTF text, TXT, I mean PNG and JPEG, right? So yeah, in either case, being a free, submission management system still, it looks like, I think that's still pretty awesome that you even, are able to do all this, right? Above, right, what I mentioned feature wise. So, it's a strict logic form, future features limitations. You don't have much flexibility on the submission form. Yeah. So I remember that. And then notifications are limited, right? So the only notifications they have are built in presently for authors who receive messages from publications. There are no notifications for new submissions again. So yeah. Yeah, so I remember it being tough, right? You have to like log in to really check things, and make reminders for yourself on your own calendar, perhaps, to check like Oleada and the submission queue, right, that you have, or the incoming ones. And yeah, so I would say, Oleada has, at this time still fairly limited features, but still quite a lot of the essential ones, right? To create projects, open and close windows, right? And there is the ability, right, to preview files, right, documents, so you're not downloading files, which is nice. And yeah, so I considering, it's free to use, I'd say this isn't bad at all. It's fairly good. It's way better than using just like a Google intake form. I feel that way anyway, or just using via email. I think, for some who don't like, as a editor of a lit mag journal or looking to start one, if you're not a huge fan of, juggling things all via email or through a Google form, or even, Microsoft forms or other types like that, Oleada is a good solution. No doubt. I think it is pretty cool. It's hard, right? Think about it, right? To create a submission management system from scratch, I think that a lot of work goes into that. So this itself is very cool, and yeah, and it's very simple. I recall it was, very simple to use and to start, opening up calls and creating projects. It wasn't super complicated or anything like that. So yeah, again, it doesn't have perhaps, team permission stuff, right? It says you can add other editors or team members to help review, but I don't recall there being an ability to customize permissions and things like that. So yeah, again, I made a pros and cons list of Oleada. Some of the stuff were just off the top of my head from memory. I may add to it and stuff, but anyways, yeah, you can check out that list I made out on the Litmag Lab Substack, and yeah, typically, again, I only rate, submission management systems that I've experience with or have heard from fellow friends in the community based on feedback, or ones I've interacted with quite a bit myself, or, things like that, or have used, right, for a little bit. And yeah. So, I mentioned Dual Suma in the past episode, right? I said I would give it, just off of reading the features and knowing about it and my interactions also with Duotrope also and everything. I gave it like a 4.3 out of 5, right? I feel like Oleada is like, I think I said 3.2 out of 5. I don't like rating things or anything like that, but, um, Oleada is you could say, is a stripped down submission management system. It has like the basics, functionality of what you need, right? To intake submissions, to review them, give a decision, right? It doesn't have like notifications, right? As it stated, custom workflows, things like that. I don't know what's ahead for Oleada, like roadmap wise. Reason I'm saying that is like this old roadmap is here from, like, see, it hasn't been updated. This is 2020, right? And it's been sitting here a little bit. So even despite that, right, the roadmap not being updated and some features still not there, quite a few places still use Oleada till today, right? I mentioned Fine Print Press and the other ones here, right? Some of them, not all, are open or, still using Oleada, right? Some of these, publishers again are inactive, or some of them, perhaps stop using Oleada or move to another submission management system setup. Yeah, so you really have to, again, if you ever landed on the Oleada homepage, right, you'd have to click in to find that out. I think it'd be nice if there was like, something, on the front end to just highlight the active calls and the active publishers and current ones, right, rather than have the older listings like our old listing here, and things like that. Now, I think it should just be hidden from view, right? We have, so a lot of times when you're on a old on a submission management system, right, you have an archive of some kind. So we still have, probably some submissions from that window archived in Oleada still there, right? Totally. I recall logging in last year or a couple months ago to Oleada actually to check if our archive was still there, and it is. So, submissions we had from that time we were using it. I'm not going to log in or anything. I'm just, showing you what, maybe a submitter may see or someone who stumbles across it on the front side, right? So, yeah. Um, yeah, so I hope Oleada does continue to evolve and grow and to add some more features in here. I think, again, it's free currently. It says beta, so it's been in beta stages for a while, stating that again. But, I think, if Oleada ever does, continue to grow and add more publishers and, to this and everything, I think a plan of like, what Joshua had mentioned back in 2022 to me, like less than $15 a month, I think that would be very reasonable for a lot of lit mags and journals. Yeah, because having something basic to intake submissions and to organize it, it's a good idea, right? Fine Print Press has been on Oleada for quite some time. I think I've submitted to them again on Oleada myself, and I can't recall if I tried any others on that I came across on Oleada, but in any case, we might do an episode again next on Fine Print Press and maybe Metatron Press too. And yeah, in either case, right? I think Oleada is a good solution. If you're just a lit mag or journal press starting out and you don't want to spend a boatload of money on like a monthly or annual plan with the submission management system, right? And I'm not saying again, we're on Subfolio and it's not super expensive or anything like that at all. Submittable can get, kind of tough, right? Because it's very limited in terms of like the amount of products you can have, again, how many team members you can have on your plan under the CMP membership. So like with Subfolio, again, we don't have restrictions on the amount of team members or calls we can have open at a given time. So there's a lot of breathing room again with Subfolio, which I really like. I think out of all the submission management systems I've seen, but yeah, if you're looking for something simple or, you're just starting up, and you're not a huge fan of Google Forms, you could try Oleada and see if it, is a solution for you. It still exists. It's still around. I just want to share again Oleada's existence because again, it was technically the first submission management system that Dippity, Literary Magazine, we're now shortening our name, right? Dippity Lit Mag has ever used. And I thought it was still really, really good. There were times I was still, emailing outside, right? I mentioned this right after giving acceptance, right? I was still emailing outside of Oleada, right, to do additional tasks, right? I don't think Oleada, if I recall, has like where you can set up like send a contract agreement or something like that, or things like that nature, right, back to the submitter or things like that. So templates and things like that are in terms of like template creation and custom workflows and stuff are, limited in that sense, right? If I recall too, as it stated also on that features list and, future features that, Joshua was looking to add or I don't, yeah, I'm not sure again where Oleada stands in terms of features and development and, the next couple of years or where it's headed. In either case, I do hope Oleada sticks around and continues. There are some absolutely some active presses and literary magazines and journals on here. You just have to like poke around if you're ever on this homepage. But what most do, right? I think they have like a link to their Oleada submission calls or pages, right? And, if I click on one of these, right, you just have to log in and create an account, right? So there isn't single sign on, by the way, as well. So that is also another, you could say, con on the list to add, disadvantage, I'm saying. So yeah, so no single sign on, but either way, it's it's still a good submission man system for sure. Not one to count out of one, it's not bad at all, is what I'm saying. So Yeah, there are other submission management systems out there, right? I put in the list, right, and I haven't used every single one in existence. Yeah. So another one I haven't used myself. I mean, I've used it as a submitter, right? Would be at Submission Manager. It's just like literally, I think called Submission Manager, and it's SUBMGR when you look at its logo, right? So I think that was through was that established some founders of lit magazine journals or team members have created submission management systems themselves too in the past is what I've seen. So I think submission manager was one of those. Yeah. I mean, I could pull it up and see for you guys too. I don't know if I'll do an episode on that one just because I have very limited knowledge on it myself. I used it, as a submitter places that have it, right? Um yeah, so let me see if I can pull that up for you guys real quick. So yeah, again, Oleada, I think, the whole fact that it's free is what probably, a lot of editors, you have lit magazine journals, right? They want to cut down on the expenses, right? And submission management systems can take out a large chunk of your budget, right? Every month, right? You're paying a fee, or let's say you're on the annual plan, right, or anything like that with some of the other ones out there, right? So yeah, I will pull up this article for you too, by the way, real quick. It's One Story, sorry. So One Story Submission Manager. So yeah, One Story is also a publication, right, out there. And One Story Submission Manager, it's free for publishers and presses, right? So let me go out there and show you guys actually. I don't know if I'll do a separate episode on them. Um, Maybe I will. But anyways, I'll just show it to you real quick on this episode. So yeah, so here we are. So yeah, this is what I'm talking about if you're wondering what I was saying. So this is One Story Submission Manager. It's free for publishers and presses too. So Oleada isn't the only free one out there, just a heads up. I don't know if I'll do a separate episode on it, we'll see, but I just wanted to mention it real quick. Who knows, it could be the next episode too. I thought I mentioned, might do fine print press as the next episode or one of these, but we might again continue this. Actually, we might continue a conga line of submission management systems. I don't think I'm going to cover Moksha on this podcast just because most couldn't afford that. Just what I'm thinking. The plan's pricing is super high on Moksha, right? $75 a month, and the annual plans are, very, very high outside of my range too. So yeah, check out One Story Submission Management System. I think that's nice. I can't remember who created it. Anyways, there's documentation to it, and yeah, or no, it wasn't Eric, it was Devin, right? Devin, I think, right? Or is a name I see that comes up on quite a bit on Submission Manager. So yeah, Joshua founded Oleada, and then I'm not sure who created again Submission Manager, but I saw a contact name right on Submission Manager, Devin Emke, or I could be mispronouncing names there. In any case, right, the setup of submission manager is a little bit different from other systems, right? So that's the thing. So I know others like to just like log in and to get started, create projects and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. I have no experience with submission manager. It's literally called submission manager. So I have no experience with that one particularly, but I have used it quite a bit as a submitter myself. I've seen several publications, quite a few, a lot out there actually use it, and have it, on, available, right? So that's one that's around and it's free to use, right? And free for publishers and presses. So I think that's nice. I don't really know the details further than that, so yeah, you could look into that one too. But I just wanted to take the time to share Oleada at least. So yeah, and this is what I was referring to, right? In terms of the other one, submission manager, right? See, you can see Devin is the contact, and then there's documentation. It mentions, right, it's available for free on GitHub, right? So, yeah. So I just wanted to share that one too on this episode. I know I mostly talked about Oleada, but wanted to mention this one too. So, yeah, I think free is, the way to go, if you're just starting out, especially. And it's, you don't want to spend a bunch of money on a submission management system, right? You want it to be within your budget. You want it to be easy to use. And for the most part, Oleada, and even, I haven't used submission manager myself, but from what I've seen, just poking around a little bit. I think I looked at the documentation, or I could be wrong, but anyway, just from what I saw online, and I think I've seen others mention it from time to time. It's good too. So if you're looking for some free solutions, in terms of the world of submission management, these would be some here, like Oleada, right? Submission manager, I just showed you, right? Yeah. So again, if you're looking for something that's packed with features and things like that, and maybe some of the other things, right, that duosuma has, or dapple or subfolio, right, then you may want to look at that more. So if you're looking for something very simple just to intake submissions and to track things, right, Oleada or submission manager, right, one of those may work for you, certainly. A lot of lit mags, journals, and presses have used that, and Oleada, right, there's still some I'm seeing here, right, that are open for submissions as of 2025, and that's great to see. So I do hope, again, Oleada continues to grow. I think and I hope they add features and do maybe another version update or something. I'm not sure if they've added any features since I last used it. It's been several years since I last used it, but I wanted to take the time to share it with you guys because it could be a solution for someone out there. And be sure to check out Sublunary Editions too, that publication, right? I might have to check out some of the books and publications they've done and read more about Firmament. I think I came across Firmament actually again, a couple months back or earlier on too, and I was looking into like how do you submit and stuff, and yeah, and then I think they also are part of. I could be wrong. Wait, let's go back to Sublunary Editions. So I don't know if I'll do an episode on this either. Just sharing additional things, you guys, doesn't hurt to share. But about us here, right? So you see asterism, distribution, and wholesale. That's something else I may cover, with you guys on this podcast. If you don't know what that is, it's something I'm familiar with myself because I tried applying to asterism, right? We didn't get accepted into it, but I will maybe show you around that, and maybe some other resources, or distribution wise, for Litmax journals and presses for their series, right? Could be for chapbooks and stuff like that. I didn't get into the asterism program, or for distribution and stuff like that. And yeah, but in any case, I think it's still really fantastic what asterism does, right? Look into that too. I'm just giving a mention about that on this since I saw it there. Yeah, so this is Oleada. I hope this episode helped you. I just wanted again to share once again Oleada's existence, same with the other past podcast episodes, in terms of what's out there in this mission management system world, right? So a lot of different options. You gotta just try and see if you like it or not. Yeah. So that's it, guys. That's all I have for this episode. And yeah, again, I think what Joshua has created here, with Oleada, and has facilitated, is very helpful to presses and lit mags and journals, right? This is a free solution right now currently. I don't know if they're ever going to have monthly plans or anything like that, or again add features or to it, or revamp this at all. In either case, it's functional, right? It works, right? That's the most important thing, right? And it's simple and easy to use. That's it. That's all I remember. So there were times I was like, I wish I'd had this feature. I wish it had that feature, right? But I was just looking for something at the time to not be a Google intake form, because I didn't really like that. And yeah, and Google intake forms again aren't necessarily bad or anything like that. They are a great cost effective solution, a low, no cost to you, right? So, and they're quick to set up. A lot of places still use Google Forms from time to time for tracking certain things, right? Totally, right? I see it all the time. Lit magazine journals and presses using that for intaking submissions till today. So, yeah, that's all. So take care, guys. Again, I hope it helped you. And I'm not sure, maybe I can cover, I don't know if I'll cover submission manager, one story submission manager, the one I mentioned right here. In any case, I just wanted to share it with you guys in case I don't do an episode on it itself, or who knows, I may down the road. But it's in the list that I have to, created out on Substack. I just don't have a lot of experience with it as a publisher, or or anything like that, like with a publisher account or press account. I've never created one through, or established that through Submission Manager, for intaking submissions. I've only ever again used it as a submitter. But yeah, I have experience with Oleada, so I wanted to share it with you guys. My memory was fuzzy on a lot of the features and stuff, so it's something you have to try and see. if it really is going to be something you could use, when just starting out, totally, or at any point in time, of your lit mag journal press. If your submission man system is being too costly or something, let's say maybe you're on Moksha or something else. There are other ones out there, obviously, I didn't cover. Maybe you want to cut down costs, right? You could move to something like some of the other ones I mentioned on this podcast. Maybe Oleada, maybe Submission Manager, maybe Duosuma, maybe Subfolio, like we're on Subfolio, right? Check it out. So, Dapple is a new one that has just is coming out, right? And is in their beta phase actually right now too, and launching, it looks like very soon. In terms of like yeah. So check it out and check all the ones I mentioned out. Dapple, Steel Suma, right? Subfolio. You can create trial accounts. Oleada, right? You can reach out. Same thing with Submission Manager. I'm sure you could reach out and get help with like setting it up, right? So you're not really alone. There's usually, maybe the founder or developer of it can help you out, set things up, if you have questions. Submittable, Duo Suma, right? They have like support teams, around their submission management systems. Subfolio, Dapple, right? They're just starting out, so eventually those will grow. Oleada, right? I only ever, ask Joshua questions and stuff, same thing. So in any case, there aren't, they're about, I think, 39-ish listings or slightly under 40, or I could be wrong off of my count here. And again, not all of these are active. So I do hope one day they hide these from view or do something with Oleada's homepage a bit further. Yeah, because I think it is a great solution for a lot of lit mags and presses. Same thing with Submission Manager. I think that's really nice, that it's free for publishers and presses. So, yeah, so I don't know if this is ever going to change, but if it does one day and continues to grow, that's awesome. So, bye, guys. Now, yeah, take care, yeah. Yeah. And one more PS note, guys. I know I had PS notes on all the episodes, so I just tack on additional info here. Yeah, again, Josh developed, Oleada, right? And I mentioned earlier asterism books, aside from, Josh and sublunary editions, right? So, asterism books, again, is a trade, distributor, and online bookstore designed, built, and run by independent publishers. They essentially, again, it says here, aims to bring the best of small press publishing together in one place, highlighting the quality and diversity of the independent publishing landscape. So yeah, you can browse more around on this, but if you go to meet the team on Asters and Books, right? Josh is also the founder of that, and co-owner, and does tech support. He's done a lot of really cool, development work, right? It says here he learned JavaScript, right, to solely to create a better writing app for himself, even, and things like that. So that's really cool. He's the publisher of Sublunary Editions, co-publisher of the Empyrean series, and co-publisher of it looks like Hanuman Editions, or I could be mispronouncing that, Hanuman Editions. I apologize in advance. So yeah, he's the author of Asterism's expansive code base. So it's really tough, to build things from scratch, no doubt. So that's really awesome. The work that Josh has done thus far. Really cool. Asters and Books, was it looks like founded in 2021. So I'm not super familiar with Aster and Books. I came across it, I think, through CLMP, and that's how I heard about it. And then I was like, I wonder, if we can apply and stuff. But I think we're just too early out, and there are other, again, factors in that, like with our ISBNs and things like that, right? So I don't think we qualify at this time for it. And who knows, usually they have waiting periods. We have to wait before you apply again too. So just keep that in mind. I'm not sure what the exact requirements are till today, in terms of joining Asters and Books and getting into their distribution solutions. So yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna circle back to Asters and Books myself and maybe look into applying again, and maybe want to further along in our series, or we have, our relaunch done with Dippity Lit Mag, right? I may look at Asters and Books again for Dippity Press and circle back to it, right? And there are other things I'm currently llooking into for Dippity 2, Dippity Press. Maybe I'll cover it on this podcast. Like, there's some great like digital, distribution solutions too, not just physical distribution too as well. So maybe I'll share a little bit about that. In any case, yeah, you can check out Asterism if you like. Check out Sublunary Editions, and again, check out Oleada. It's still around, still being used, by lit mags, journals, and presses. Totally, yeah. So, yeah, I just wanted to add this PS note. I know, yeah. So that's all I can really think of here. Yeah, so you can also click into some of these. I think it's still cool to like click into some of these even if they're not active, right, to learn more about these lit mags, journals, and presses. Some of them still have, quite a few of them have, active websites, not all, but yeah, so there are absolutely active calls and open ones in here. They're just, on this homepage, it's a bit tough to find, right? If you go on like the publishers or lit mag or journals press website, right, they probably have a link that takes you out just to their like, Oleada call page, right? Yeah. So yeah, like this one, right? See, miniature literatures is open right here. You can see the call, right, is closing out experimental September 1st, 2025. Extracts, yeah, and then interviews they're doing. So yeah, they're absolutely active publications on here, ones that are still up and running. So yeah, I hope Oleada sticks around, long term and things like that, and maybe evolves further, and development changes a bit further here and adds features, because I think it's a great, again, solution for others looking for something that is barely at any cost, right? It's free now, and I don't know if again it'll ever have like a paid plan or one day or something like that, or change from this current setup. In any case, right, I shared Oleada. I also shared another one that I'm aware of, right, One Story Submission Manager. I will drop links below to everything I talked about, so check it out and take care. Let me know if this helped you too. Drop a comment, feel free to. And that's all, yeah. And one more PS note, guys, just one more. I know I said bye, and but this is gonna have a double PS note just because I caught something that I want to take the time to share. So, I don't think Metatron Press is using Oleada currently. I could be wrong. I showed you earlier in the podcast, right? 32 poems, right? They use both Duo Summa and Submittable, right? But yeah, anyways, these aren't all the project calls, Metatron Press has open. Um, and if you go out, actually, and if you click on this, it doesn't take you to the website. So I went actually out to, search engine, pulled up Metatron Press. I looked for, the micro meta poems call right on their site. And if you click on the submit button here, it's linked to Duo Summa. So they are using Duo Summa instead, it looks like, or they've switched to that. I don't believe Metatron is currently using Oleada just based on, this, right? And they don't have the year updated here, but it's open, and that may be something they just haven't done. Their other calls I've seen, they do have 2025 listed. So yeah. So yeah, and they're not entirely fee free, by the way. They have some digital calls. If we go back here, I'll just share this real quick. If you go back to submissions here, so you can see the ones in brackets here are for Canadians only, right? Those based in Canada or from Canada, right? And then they have, international windows, right? So digital publications is international. Micro metapoems looks like I don't see anything in brackets of Canada. And then they have the International Poetry Prize and some other calls here. So yeah, they do have, you know, again, this free micro meta poems one tied to their Instagram account, and then this digital publications one, there's a fee on it. So when I clicked into that, I'll show you guys. We click submit, you know, it takes you out here to Duosuma again. So I believe they're using Duosuma as their, primary submission management system or sole one. I don't believe they're using Oleada, or if they've just forgotten to close out that bucket on Oleada. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, so you can see they have a fee here, right? It's $15 Canadian, right? So that's about like concurrent conversion rate, about 10 USD, right? And they do, pay writers, right, for their work, it looks like, right? Yeah, as you can see here, it's 150 Canadian dollars, which is, I don't know what that conversion rate would be, like 109 USD, US dollars, or I could be wrong. My conversion rates could be off, guys, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, they have 2025 here, so some of their listings they may have not just gotten around to updating the year. in any case, yeah, just wanted to point out they are, on their site, everything appears to be linking to Duo Suma instead of Oleada. So again, not, as I mentioned, right, on Oleada, not all of these projects are active, or and things like that. So just double check what's on, a publisher's website again, to verify, how they want others to submit to a call and things like that, and their current submission management system. Because sometimes there are cases where places moved off of submission management systems, and then there's like older projects up. In most cases, they're closed or deactivated, right? Like when we left, for example, submittable, right? Our submittable space was deactivated, right? So just keep that in mind. Yeah. So just sharing, and yeah. So any case, just wanted to share, that additional note about Metatron, since I saw they're using Duo Suma now. So yeah. So that's all, guys. Bye. Yeah.